Hi, my name is Dr. Jennifer Brandon. I'm a biological oceanographer who studies plastic pollution in the ocean. As you can see from this globe, ocean plastics are a worldwide problem. We find them around the ocean, but especially concentrated in the 5 subtropical gyres. So in this diagram, you'll see the pink areas that are concentrated in the middle of the ocean. Those are the subtropical gyres where the plastic concentration is the most dense on the surface ocean. I'm going to talk a little bit about how the plastic gets there and why it's so concentrated there. So ocean pollution is a relatively new problem. Plastic is only about 100 years old as a substance. It was invented in 1907, but we didn't widely use it until World War II and right after World War II. But since then, we have had an exponential growth in global plastic production, and we are currently up to approximately 407 million tons of plastic produced annually worldwide. And of that 407 million tons, approximately 4.8 to 12.7 million metric tons enter the ocean annually. That plastic gets into the ocean from polluted rivers and harbors, like these 2 bottom pictures show you. Those rivers flow into the ocean. Dirty harbors drop it into the ocean off of ships, and that flows through currents into the subtropical gyres where it gets stuck, sometimes indefinitely. And there is an estimated standing stock of 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic floating on the ocean's surface. But that's just what's floating on the surface of the ocean. What's sunk to the bottom of the ocean is actually vastly understudied. And so we are really just kind of at the beginning of studying how much plastic is currently in the ocean. What you think of when you think of plastic in the ocean is often those last pictures of really polluted rivers, large pieces of plastic, or this top image on the right of a really big thing of nets, large tires floating in the ocean, animals entangled in plastic. But that's actually not what most of the plastic in the ocean looks like. Over 90% of the plastic in the ocean is microplastic, or plastic that's smaller than 5 millimeters. So in our lab at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, we counted over 32,000 pieces of plastic from the Pacific subtropical gyre, and we found that over 90% of them were smaller than 5 millimeters. To give you a reference of how big 5 millimeters is, that's half the size of an M&M. So this is really, really small plastic. I then went and looked at even smaller plastic than that had kind of been missed in earlier studies, and I found that we were actually underestimating how much plastic is in the ocean by an order of magnitude of 5 to 7 orders of magnitude of plastic. So the plastic in the ocean is tiny. It's the vast majority of it by number is tiny, little minuscule microscopic pieces. These pieces can be fragments that are from larger things that have broken down. They can be from fibers that are coming off of ropes. They're coming off of our clothing, and they're getting into the ocean. They can be from microbeads that are manufactured to be that small, or they can be from nurdles, which are pre-production pellets that are made to be that small. The reason that microplastics are the issue in the ocean when it comes to plastic pollution is that they can enter every layer of the food web. They can be eaten by really tiny things like plankton, which are the base of the oceanic food web, all the way up to something like a blue whale that filters vast amounts of water and are eating microplastics as well. And microplastics have the potential to bioaccumulate in tissue. So they're small enough that they can actually enter into the muscle tissue of animals and then be eaten and bioaccumulate up that way. We've started to find them in pretty much every environment we look for them in. So we're finding them in sea ice, we're finding them in rivers, we're finding them in oceanic sediment. We've begun to find them traveling around in the atmosphere because they're so small and buoyant. And we've even begun to find them in inland soil. So this is no longer just an oceanic problem. And we are also finding them in human food sources as well. So we depend on the ocean for many things, including seafood, sea salt, and our own drinking water can come from desalination plants. But also fresh water is now contaminated with microplastics. So we're beginning to see microplastics in our daily lives. So the implications of this are manyfold. I did a study where we looked at microplastics in oceanic sediment, and this top graph shows that we found sediment plastic deposition at basically the same rate as that graph I showed you on the first slide of world plastic production. So if you see that these two graphs have basically the same slope, that shows that we are leaving plastic in our marine sediment at the same rate as world plastic production, meaning we are leaving plastic behind in what is going to become our fossil record. So as you think about the Bronze Age or the Gold Age or the Iron Age that you learned about back in history class, we have the potential to be known as the plastic age in future history, because that is what we are leaving behind in our fossil record, which I would not say single-use plastic is maybe our greatest invention, but it is what we are leaving behind. Humans are consuming plastic. We now know enough to say definitively that we are consuming plastic. Some studies say that we eat about 5 grams of plastic a week, which is approximately the same size as a credit card. That is a lot of plastic. The health effects of that are unknown, but we do know that plastic has harmful additives and chemicals in it. And we know that we are harming animals with this plastic. So we know that 1 in 3 species of marine mammals have been entangled in marine litter. Every other sea turtle that is out in the ocean, so 52% of sea turtles out in the ocean have consumed marine plastic. 86% of sea turtle species have consumed plastic, as well as many seabird species. So we're harming animals that we care about that are endangered, as well as animals that we depend on for seafood. So what can we do about this problem? The great thing about ocean plastic is that this is a consumer-driven problem and a relatively new problem. We got into this problem in about 50 years, so we can probably turn it around in about the same amount of time. And because it's a consumer-driven problem, there's a lot of consumer-driven solutions. So probably the easiest one that you've probably heard about is bringing reusable cups, bottles, straws, and bags everywhere you go, and refusing things like coffee lids and straws when you have forgotten your reusables. You can also buy in bulk. So when you're at the grocery store, not buying everything plastic lined, but actually buying things in bulk can really reduce your plastic footprint. You can buy non-plastic reusable alternatives to many everyday items. You can participate in beach cleanups, especially if you live on the coast. But if you don't live on the coast, you can clean your local lakes and rivers, and pretty much all of those rivers will eventually end up in an ocean. So that plastic will eventually get out into my samples. So we appreciate it. And you can get involved in banning single-use plastics in your community. So there are a lot of organizations that are involved in the activism side of this that are working to ban things like single-use styrofoam packaging, banning plastic bags, banning microplastic, microbeads in products. So if the activism side of it is kind of more interesting to you, there's a lot of organizations that are doing that on a city-by-city basis. And with that, that is just a brief overview of ocean plastic pollution. And there's much more to say, obviously, but that's kind of the beginning of the talk.